Welcome back to the channel, guys. I hope you're all doing well. Today, I woke up and I guess I chose violence because I'm going to be disagreeing with 73% of you guys. Before we get into it, drop a like on the video because I got a feeling once this goes any further, you're going to be hovering over that dislike button. Now, I do want to say a big disclaimer, okay? If you disagree with what I'm saying, let me know in the comment section below. If you have a reason why Brimstone is not the worst blessing for Artak, or possibly one of them, as far as the ones that are actually viable. We're not talking about the useless ones, right? But let me know in the comment section below. So the poll that I did yesterday says you get a 5-star blessing for Artak. Which blessing are you choosing? Soul Reap, Brimstone, or Cruelty? Now, this does consider that you pushed it in this event. You're not going for the 6-star blessing. If you're going for a 6-star blessing, things change a little bit because Smite becomes 100% guaranteed and protected. So the reasons could be a little bit different. Maybe you would go Smite. Maybe you'd want to go Soul Reap. Maybe some different things would happen. But this is going to assume that you've got the 5-star soul, that's what you're using, and your current benefits from Brimstone are as follows. So let's go ahead and look at Brimstone, which is right here. Not what I have on my Artak. I don't want Brimstone on my Artak. But here we go, Brimstone. 1-star, 15% chance of placing Smite. 3-star, 30% chance of placing Smite. 5-star, 60% chance of placing a protected Smite, which means this can't be cleansed. So on Ice Golem, he can't cleanse it. On Hydra, the Head of Decay, can't cleanse this. Those are both very nice things to have. It makes this a very solid upgrade. But I think it's probably one of the worst blessings you can actually go for on Artak, especially when you compare it to some of these other ones today. So what's the plus sides of Smite, all right? It's not a bad blessing to have by no means, but what are the plus sides? So we got amazing stat boost. We have 6,000 HP, which on Artak is fantastic, plus 50 accuracy. We also have a very high chance of placing Smite. So on Hydra, we're gonna place it consistently. Anytime that it can be up, it's gonna be up, which is gonna be fantastic. It can't be cleansed by the Head of Decay. If we get it up on Ice Golem, it's gonna be up basically all the time as well. If we get it on the big Ice Golem, it's gonna do big damage to him, but it's also gonna proc the slam. So Brimstone is a great blessing to have, but not on Artak. So let's talk about some of the negatives. So I talked about some of the positives real quick. Big damage and needed on Hydra. Yes, it is needed on Hydra. Definitely make sure you bring it at least on a couple champions. Maybe 2 in case one gets swallowed, but ideally on single target champions. And we're going to go over that a little bit later because right now you're thinking, wait, you're saying it's good, but you're saying it's bad. You're saying it's needed, but it's also useless. What is going on here? Hang on for just a minute, guys. It's going to be all crystal clear in just a few more seconds, all right? So number 2, good for dungeons when placed on the boss. That is a very key phrase right here, when placed on the boss. Unfortunately, you can't control where it goes. So sometimes it's going to go on the little spider, sometimes it's going to go on the big spider, sometimes it's going to go on the side minion of the Ice Golem, sometimes it's going to go on the actual Ice Golem himself. A lot of times, it's going to be wasted because if it goes on a boss and their skills are on cooldown, well, they're not going to activate Brimstone. If it goes on a minion, they have no active skills, so it's also going to be wasted there. So a little bit of a mixed bag. Now, number 3, good stat boosts. I already talked about that. Now let's talk about the negatives. So the negatives. We have, let's see, bad on AoE champions. The reason why I say that is because you can't target and control where it goes, unfortunately. So if I want Artak to place it on the Head of Suffering, which does those double attacks with extra turns, then I just got to hope and pray that it actually places on him because, yeah, his AoE skill, it's going to place on really whatever Hydra head that I guess it wants to go on. Especially at a 60% chance to place, it's going to be very difficult to actually target it. Number 2, slam on the Ice Golem. So Brimstone can activate the big slam. You know that big slam that smashes your team like a little bug? Well, that's the slam that it can activate. So if you're doing Ice Golem and you don't plan for that to happen every time, you're going to get smashed. Your dreams are going to be crushed right there in front of you by the Ice Golem. It's going to be a bad day. I did test this on stream yesterday. My team on Ice Golem 10 hard is built to survive the slam. So the Brimstone's fine. You can make it fine, but you got to be mindful that slam hits hard. My Elva can survive and she can res. No problem whatsoever though, even with a crit with both minions up. Next thing, can only have 1 copy active. So if you have 4 champions in Hydra, all with Brimstone, you're not going to be able to place 4 Brimstones. It's not a single champion cooldown, it's a global cooldown. So once you get that placed, like I have 2 champions with Brimstone. They're both single target champions, both with 1-star Brimstone. Sometimes it places and does great. Sometimes it places on a Hydra head that is either on cooldown or is the Head of Decay who is currently provoked. The Head of Decay basically never does Smite or never activates Smite because he's always provoked. They both have AoE skills. Sometimes I can kind of control where it goes with their A1s, but most of the time it's really just placing it on whoever. It is nice to have. It is a very nice debuff to have because when it does activate, it does big damage, and it's freed my champions plenty of times. But you don't need it, in my opinion, on a champion at 5-star when you could just have a couple 1-star. Like, it's not going to be that big of a difference. 15% versus 60% when it has a cooldown anyways, over the course of a long match where you're having increased speed and decreased speed is going to be perfectly fine. Even go into 30%, you're going to be okay. But 15%, like I said, isn't a big deal whatsoever. So can only have 1 copy active at a time. Like I said, you can't place 4 copies of Brimstone. If you could, it'd be a different story. Next thing, doesn't always activate. I've already kind of harped on this a few times. Basically, what that's meaning is Head of Decay, any other head that is on cooldown, heads that are not using their active skills, they're not activating Smite. Champions who are AoE are inherently worse with Smite because of the fact they can't kind of dictate where it goes. Champions like Newt, I could click the heads. I don't want to run a Hydra run on manual by no means, so I'm not saying you should do that either. But if I click a head, say I click the Head of Suffering, so Newt can actually hit that head, or all my champions with Smite have a chance of hitting that head and allowing them to actually have a chance of placing the Smite on that head specifically, that's going to be fantastic because that head is going to activate it very often. If you're doing this all on A or all on full auto though, it's not really going to make a big difference either way because Smite's going wherever it wants, whenever it wants, and there's really no rhyme or reason to it anyways. But ultimately, Smite, Brimstone, it's going to be best on champions you can kind of dictate where it actually goes. On champions like Artak, I think it's one of the worst of specifically the 3 that I mentioned. So before I talk about my Soul Reap one that I really am a big fan of, I want to give a quick shout out to one that was talked about a lot in stream yesterday by specifically Chris. He's a big fan of Cruelty. Cruelty feels weird going on a legendary champion. It feels weird to have a epic blessing on a legendary champion, especially when you could bring in an epic champion with this. But even though it feels weird, Artak is AoE on every skill. We're talking about Smite being inconsistent and kind of random. So sometimes you may get the benefit, and probably most of the time, to be honest, you just won't get the benefit that you want from Smite. And you can bring it on other champions. 1-star is perfectly fine. Cruelty. I actually just realized I don't have Cruelty on any of my champions. So Cruelty gives a 1000 HP boost and a crit damage boost. So mostly a damage boost. Not a massive impact for Artak, but this is pretty big. Decreases target defense by 2% per hit, up to 30% for champions, up to 15% for bosses. So basically, you're getting a 15% defense decrease on all the Hydra heads. This is not a decreased defense as far as like a debuff. So it's separate things. So basically, you're getting 15% less defense on the bosses. Everything Artak does is AoE. So it's going to take 7 hits, 8 hits to get those Hydra heads defense decreased to that 15%, which is pretty big. Now, if you want something that's consistent to work all the time, you don't have to worry about, is it going to work? Is it going to activate? Is it not? This could potentially be a very solid blessing. It feels weird, I know, putting an epic blessing on a legendary champion, but if you look at my Hydra team specifically, I think actually Cruelty would make the most sense on Artak, but I'm not using Artak only for Hydra, so that would assume that I'm only using him there. But Necmo, I don't have any blessing on him, and I don't really want to go Cruelty on him anyways, though it may actually be good on him considering he's AoE on everything as well. But I have no Cruelty on Kantra. It wouldn't make a ton of sense on her. No Cruelty on Mithrala. No Cruelty on anybody. But on Artak, a high blessing, Cruelty actually makes quite a bit of sense. And it feels weird to say. I know it does. But it could make sense, okay? If you're going specifically for Hydra, Cruelty is not a bad option. Now, the option that I want to talk about, and specifically the one I know the most about and have had the most experience with, is Soul Reap. Soul Reap is required if you want to do Spider hard, 9 or 10. So we talked about Brimstone being inconsistent on the dungeons. On Dragon, Brimstone, I do want to give it credit, is very, very helpful in Dragon. However, even with Brimstone, Artak cannot solo stages 9 and 10. The Dragon's too fast, Artak's too slow, and Artak has no real way to push out more damage. His damage relies on the Dragon activating Brimstone because even with HP burn, it's just useless. You could possibly do it with Toxic Set, but I don't think you can on 9 or 10 hard. So as far as Spider goes, Soul Reap, like I'm saying, is very, very needed. So the Soul Reap blessing at 1-star activates at 4% of the target's max HP whenever it's 4% left. And then at 3-star, it's 8%. And at 5-star, it's a 14%. These Spiderlings are going to be chopped down so incredibly early. Now, the reason why it's so important to kill these Spiderlings and make sure you do kill them is because, one, when you kill them, they're dealing damage to the big spider's max HP, which is fantastic. They also, quite possibly as good or bad, whenever they get eaten, they're boosting the big spider's attack. So let's see this ability. Tainted Skavog heals. Okay. Tainted Skavog heals by 3% of her max HP for each spiderling consumed and permanently increases her attack by 10% for each tainted spiderling consumed. So if you're leaving these spiderlings out, like you can do that, you're going to die. If this match goes on for like 2 minutes, even with this decreased attack up, you're going to die. You cannot have the little spiderlings hanging around because they're just going to wreck you. Like that boosting of 10% to the big spider's max HP is going to be detrimental to your team. However, every time you're killing the little spiderlings, they are dealing, I believe, 3% max HP to the big spider. I'm not sure where this is at, where it says it, but just trust me on that one, okay? Let's see. Okay, whenever a tainted spiderling dies, inflicts damage to tainted Skavog equal to 3% of her max HP. So you're dealing damage to her when you kill these, and like I said, quite possibly as important, you're preventing yourself from dying as fast. Because if this spider swallows 5 spiderlings, that's 50% attack boost. That's an increased attack permanently. And the next turn, another 5, it's going to get very, very hairy, very scary, very fast. So if you do kill most of them except for maybe one, she will swallow only that one spider. So she has to swallow a spider, because if she doesn't eat the spider, then next turn she's going to eat them. So you do want her to eat some of the spiderlings, but you want to control how many she's eating. So on my team, the Soul Reap activates on some spiderlings. I kill some spiderlings, but some are left alive because I do need her to eat some. Like I said, this ability only worked if she did not eat the turn before. So you'll see how that works. All of it's a little bit too complicated probably. Basically, all that's to say, you're going to need Soul Reap for this to actually work consistently. I've tried it with Brimstone. It does work, but it's not anywhere near consistent. I've not had any luck making it actual consistent. This run's not necessarily 100% consistent. I'm still testing it. This may actually be fine. The Soul Reap should have hit the big spider, but it didn't. There we go. She is dead. Minute 32, anything much past that, it's going to get a little bit rough. So on this dungeon, it's needed. Ice Golem Peak, is it needed? I don't think so. It's not needed on Ice Golem. It does make the waves faster. On Ice Golem Stage 9 hard, it makes them quite a bit faster because you have those waves with Tatura, who places block debuffs, so Soul Reap makes it a lot better to go through there. On Dragon's Lair, makes the waves faster once again. I use Duo Mithrala plus Artak there, Duo Artak Mithrala on Spider's Den, and Duo Artak and Elva on Ice Golem. Now, getting the 5-star blessing did allow me to go from Stage 9 hard to testing Stage 10 hard. I don't know how consistent it's going to be, but at this moment, that's the difference it's made. On Hydra, it does activate, but it's also very much like Brimstone in the fact that I wouldn't bring that blessing for Artak if I only wanted to do Hydra. Like Soul Reap, it does activate on some heads every now and then, but it's very, very conditional, very difficult to make it actually work when you want it to. And when it does work, you don't really need it to work. Like it's a nice to have, but it's not super crucial. But it does add up some damage. So it can work on Hydra, but it's definitely not the one that I would pick for Hydra. Honestly, as weird as it sounds, I would maybe actually go Cruelty. But as far as was the Path of Vengeance worth it, I want to try to give you guys as much information as I can give you and hopefully help you decide, is it actually worth it for you to continue pushing in this Path of Vengeance? It's not cheap, but was it worth it? I don't think so. Like for me, I'm planning to get the 6-star soul for Artak, mostly so I can make content. And I think it's going to be cool to do Stage 10 duo on hard mode of these dungeons. But as far as for most players, if you're content with doing Stage 9 hard, duoing, if you're doing that with your Artak, then it's not going to make a huge difference. If you're soloing these lower stages with Artak, then I don't think these higher blessings are going to allow you to solo higher stages. The higher stages are just so much harder. It's going to be very difficult to actually solo those anyways. But the 6-star blessing will give me more damage mitigation. I think it makes me do a little bit more damage as well. And it brings a 20% max HP threshold plus more speed. It gives me a lot more stats that I think are going to be very, very solid and really allow me to actually do well with his Artak. So that's going to be what I actually try to do, I believe, is get that 6-star one. But I'm kind of on the fence if I actually go for that or not. I mean, it is a nice boost, but it's also 300 of those big soul essences. So it's going to be a little difficult to decide on. But as far as, like I said, the Path of Vengeance, I would go for a 3-star blessing for sure. So if you're somebody who's very tight on points, pick up the 2-star, pick up the 3-star. The smarter thing is not doing that. The smarter, more efficient thing is to get the souls from the 4-star and 5-star, getting the higher souls first. The reason why is because it's a lot cheaper to get them in this event than it is to grind 100 of the big soul essences and then buy the Artak in the shop. But for a PvE champion, if you're not using Artak as much as I am, if you're somebody who mainly uses him in Hydra, I don't think any of the blessings are really good enough to reason or make him that viable at 5-star. I could be wrong, but after doing all this, I wasn't going from like, okay, we're going from 2 minutes an ice golem or dragon or whatever to now we're going to a minute and a half. Like it was like 7 seconds difference on ice golem or something. So it wasn't a huge difference. Even with Soul Reap being 7 points higher, 6% higher is a pretty big difference as far as the HP percentage, but it doesn't activate all the time. There's a cooldown on it. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I am going to go for, I think I said the 6-star. I do like Artak. I love Artak. He's an amazing champion, super fun champion. I use him in a lot of different areas, but most players don't use him as much as I use him. So if you're one of those players, I think it's probably best, especially with the fusion coming up, to not blow all your resources. You're going to need your resources for this upcoming fusion. If you've already spent a lot, it's not a bad thing to have. It's definitely not a bad soul to have. I don't want you guys to think at all that I'm saying going for the 5-star is a bad thing. But I do want to say that the benefits of 5-star may not truly be there, especially since it's an AoE champion. And then again, there may be times where you really want a 5-star. So it's really, like, it's ultimately up to you. I just want to share with you all the things that I found from this and that it didn't make a huge difference. And Brimstone may not be the best blessing for Hydra. It just may not be the best blessing at all. Possibly one of the worst just because of the randomness, the RNG-ness, and there's better ones that are more consistent. I did want to have a small mention of one that I thought was interesting. I don't know if it's good, but it was interesting how this works. So chain breakers, what somebody mentioned in one of my comments, and this is kind of lame. 10% chance of removing debuffs. That's useless. But at 5-star, it says 20% chance of filling this champion's turn meter by 20% when hit. That's kind of cool. Like that right there makes me kind of wonder, could this be viable? Is it better than Brimstone? I mean, boosting turn meter on a champion like Artak is pretty massive. And this is a 40% chance of filling turn meter by 20% when hit. I mean, these are some pretty cool things. It is another epic blessing. You could also go things like Intimidating Presence as well. I didn't talk about Intimidating Presence. I don't think it's great. It's a very, very small aura boost. 15% aura boost on 100 resistance, for example, is going to be an extra 15 resistance. I don't think that's massive. At 6-star, I think it's good to have on a champion who has nothing else really viable. But then again, I think 6-star Brimstone would be better than that. But either way, we're rambling now. We're going off on a tangent. Ultimately, I just want to provide you guys with some of the things that I've learned basically after yesterday's stream and just in general. So Brimstone, is it the best? I don't think so. You guys let me know down in the comment section below what you think. I'm going Soul Reap as number 1 for me and my uses, but I think I'm going to have to go number 2 with Cruelty for general Hydra uses. 15% defense reduction is pretty nice. Pretty daggone nice, especially if you're using champions like Newt and struggling to hit that max HP cap. That defense reduction is going to be solid, and he's going to get you there fast. Literally, what, 4 turns, 5 turns? No, is it 6 turns, 7 turns? I don't know. It's going to be fast, though. You're going to get it on every Hydra head all the time. So Cruelty, pretty cool. But either way, thank you all very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Don't spam the dislike, please, and I'll catch you all in the next video.